The first time I saw Margaret Bailey, she was standing in the middle of Main Street in Fort Smith, Arkansas, holding a broken wagon wheel that would have taken two normal men to lift. It was late spring in 1878, and the afternoon sun cast her shadow so long across the dusty road that it nearly reached the mercantile on the other side. She stood there like a monument, 6 feet and 3 inches of woman, with auburn hair pulled back in a practical braid and shoulders that could bear the weight of the world. Men on the wooden sidewalks whispered and pointed, some laughing behind their hands, others shaking their heads with pity. I had just ridden into town on my sorrel mare after 3 weeks of driving cattle up from Texas, my back aching and my patience worn thin, but something about the determined set of her jaw made me stop and really look. Most folks would have walked right past her, pretending not to see her struggle. That was the way of it with Margaret Bailey. She had lived in Fort Smith her whole 22 years, the daughter of Thomas Bailey, the blacksmith who had died 2 winters back from pneumonia. Her mother had passed when Margaret was just a girl, leaving her to be raised by her father in the forge, learning to work iron and handle tools that most women would not dare touch. The work had made her strong, but it was God who had made her tall, taller than any woman in 3 counties, taller than most men too. The townspeople had long ago decided that such a woman was unnatural, too much, too different to ever find a proper place in civilized society. "Need some help with that," I called out, dismounting and walking toward her. She glanced at me, her green eyes sharp and assessing. "I can manage." "I did not say you could not. I asked if you needed help. There is a difference." For a moment, she just studied me, probably trying to figure out if I was mocking her like so many others did. I was not particularly tall myself, maybe 5 feet and 9 inches on a good day, but I had learned early that a man's worth was not measured in inches. My name was Isaiah Fletcher, and I had spent the last 7 years working cattle drives and breaking horses, building a reputation as someone who got the job done without complaint. I had saved nearly every dollar I had earned, dreaming of buying my own ranch, my own piece of land where I could build something lasting. "I appreciate the offer," she finally said, her voice carefully neutral, "but I have been managing on my own for quite some time now." "That wheel is cracked clear through," I observed, stepping closer. "You planning to carry it to your forge, or were you going to fix it right here in the street?" A flicker of amusement crossed her face, there and gone like summer lightning. "The forge. I have another wheel in the shop that should fit this axle." "Then let me help you carry it. No sense in you doing alone what 2 people could do easier together." She hesitated, and in that hesitation, I saw years of rejection, of being turned away and turned down, of being told she was too much in every possible way. Then she nodded, just once, and together we lifted the wheel. It was heavy, but with 2 of us, the burden was bearable. We walked down Main Street side by side, and I could feel the eyes of the town on us, could hear the whispers starting up like a swarm of locusts. "You are new in town," she said. It was not a question. "Passing through, mostly. I work for John Morrison's outfit, helping drive cattle up from Texas. We brought a herd in yesterday, and I figured I would rest here a few days before heading back down. Morrison is a good man, pays fair wages from what I hear." "Fair enough. You are the blacksmith then, took over your father's business." "I am." "Some folks are not happy about it. A woman doing a man's work, but they need horseshoes and wagon repairs same as anyone. They complain, but they pay." We reached the forge, a sturdy building at the end of Main Street where it started to give way to the residential areas. The heat from the banked coals inside rolled out to meet us as Margaret pushed open the door. The interior was neat and organized, every tool in its place, the floor swept clean despite the nature of the work. I could see her father's influence in the care taken with the space, but I could also see her own touch in the efficiency of the layout. We set the wheel down, and Margaret immediately went to examine another wheel leaning against the far wall. "This one should work," she said, running her hands over it with the practiced ease of someone who knew their craft. "I will need to adjust it slightly, but it is sound." "You do good work," I said, looking around at the various pieces in different stages of completion. "Your father taught you well." "He did. He was a better teacher than most, and a better man than any I have known since." There was grief in her voice, old but still sharp around the edges. I understood that kind of loss. My own father had died when I was 16, thrown from a horse that I had insisted was gentle enough to ride. The guilt had driven me away from home, out into the world to prove something to myself that I still had not quite figured out. "I should let you get to your work," I said, though I found myself reluctant to leave. There was something about Margaret Bailey that drew me in, something beyond her unusual height or her capable hands. Maybe it was the loneliness I recognized, the sense of being set apart that I had felt my whole life. "Thank you for your help, Mr. Fletcher, Isaiah Fletcher, and you are welcome, Miss Bailey. You know my name already, small town, people talk. They do indeed." Her expression grew guarded again. "And what do they say about me, Mr. Fletcher?" I could have lied, could have softened it, but something told me she would respect the truth more. "They say you are too tall for any man. They say you are unnatural, that you should have left town years ago to find work in a city where people would not know you. They say a lot of foolish things that are not worth repeating." "And what do you say?" I met her eyes directly. "I say they are fools. Height is just measurement, and there is nothing unnatural about you. You are a woman running a business, doing honest work, and that is more than most folks can claim." Color rose in her cheeks, and for the first time I saw her smile. It was a small smile, cautious, but it transformed her face from merely striking to genuinely beautiful. "You are either very kind or very strange, Mr. Fletcher. Probably a bit of both. Listen, I know this is forward, but would you consider having dinner with me tonight? The hotel serves a decent meal, and I would appreciate the company." The smile faded. "I do not think that is a good idea." "Why not?" "Because people will talk. People already talk. About you, about me, about everyone in this town. Let them talk. You do not understand. I am not like the other women here. I cannot be what men expect. I am not asking you to be anything except yourself. I am asking you to share a meal, nothing more, nothing less." She studied me for a long moment, and I could see her weighing her options, measuring the risk against the potential reward. Finally, she nodded. "All right, 7 o'clock at the hotel dining room, but I warn you, Mr. Fletcher, you will likely regret it when the town gossips get hold of this." "Let me worry about my own regrets, Miss Bailey." I left the forge feeling lighter than I had in months, though I could not have explained exactly why. There was work to be done, my horse to stable, my gear to store, but all of it seemed easier somehow. I found myself whistling as I walked back down Main Street, ignoring the curious stares and the whispered conversations that stopped when I got too close. At the stable, I met Jim Howard, another one of Morrison's men who had come up with the drive. He was leaning against the fence, chewing on a piece of straw and watching me with knowing eyes. "Heard you helped Margaret Bailey with her wagon wheel," he said. "News travels fast. Always does in a town this size. You know what you are getting into." "I am having dinner with her, Jim, not proposing marriage. Folks around here have been trying to marry that girl off since she was 18. Every attempt has ended badly. She is a good woman, do not get me wrong, but she is different. Some men cannot handle different." Then those men are idiots, Jim laughed. Cannot argue with that. Just be careful, Isaiah. Margaret has been hurt plenty by this town. She does not need another man adding to her troubles. I do not intend to hurt her. No man ever does, but it happens all the same. I spent the afternoon getting cleaned up, washing the trail dust off and putting on the one good shirt I owned. It was nothing fancy, just clean cotton in dark blue, but it was the best I had. I even went to the barber for a shave, enduring his questions about my dinner plans with good humor. By the time 7 o'clock rolled around, the entire town knew about it. Margaret was already waiting in the hotel dining room when I arrived, and the sight of her took my breath away. She had changed from her work clothes into a simple dress of deep green that matched her eyes. Her hair was still in a braid, but it was neater now, and she had put on a small silver pendant that caught the lamplight. She sat straight-backed at a corner table, her hands folded in her lap, looking both defiant and vulnerable at the same time. "You look lovely," I said as I sat down across from her. "You do not have to flatter me, Mr. Fletcher. I am not. I am stating a fact." The dining room was half full, and I could feel every eye in the place on us. The waitress, a pinched-faced woman named Martha Green, took our orders with barely concealed disapproval. Margaret ordered the roast beef, I ordered the same, and we both asked for coffee. "This was a mistake," Margaret said quietly after Martha had gone. "Everyone is staring. Let them stare. I am here with you, and that is all that matters to me. You do not know what it is like. You cannot understand. Then help me understand." She looked down at her hands. "I have been tall my whole life. When I was a child, people thought it was amusing, called me their little giant, said I would grow out of it. But I never did. I just kept growing past my mother's height, past my father's, past every woman and most men in this town. By the time I was 15, I was already 6 feet tall, and the boys who used to play with me started avoiding me. They stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as a freak. You are not a freak. You say that now, but you have only known me for a few hours. Wait until you have spent more time with me. Wait until people start whispering about you too, about how strange you must be to court a woman like me. I have been called strange my whole life, Margaret. My father died because of my poor judgment. I left home at 16 because I could not stand the way my mother looked at me, like I had killed him with my own hands. I have spent 7 years drifting, never staying anywhere long enough to put down roots, never letting anyone get close enough to matter. So yes, I might not know exactly what you have been through, but I know what it is like to feel like you do not fit anywhere." She looked up, and I saw tears shining in her eyes, though she blinked them away before they could fall. "I am sorry about your father, and I am sorry about yours. I know what it is like to lose a parent too young." The food arrived, and we ate in companionable silence for a while. The roast beef was good, tender and seasoned well, and the coffee was strong and hot. Around us, the other diners gradually stopped staring and went back to their own meals, though I knew we would be the topic of conversation all over town by morning. "Tell me about the cattle drives," Margaret said after a while. "I have never been more than 20 miles from Fort Smith. What is it like, traveling all that way?" "It is hard work. Long days in the saddle, dealing with ornery cattle and worse weather, but there is something beautiful about it too. At night, when you are out on the plains with nothing but stars above you, you feel small in the best possible way. You realize that all your problems, all the things you worry about, they are just tiny pieces of something much bigger. That sounds wonderful. I would love to see that someday. Why do not you? What is keeping you here, the forge? My father built that business from nothing. I cannot just walk away from it. Could you not sell it? Use the money to start fresh somewhere else. And do what? I am a blacksmith, Isaiah. That is all I know. And what man is going to want a wife who is taller than he is and smells like coal smoke? A man with sense would. A man who sees past the surface to what is underneath. Men like that are rare. So are women who can lift a wagon wheel by themselves. That got a genuine laugh out of her, a real one that lit up her whole face. You make it sound like a virtue instead of a curse. It is a virtue. Strength is always a virtue, whether it comes in a small package or a large one. We talked for hours, long after we had finished eating. She told me about her childhood, about learning the trade from her father, about the lonely years after he died when she had to prove herself to every man who doubted that a woman could do the work. I told her about the drives, about the men I had worked with, about the dream I had of owning my own ranch someday. "Where would you want this ranch?" she asked. "Somewhere with good water and better grass. Maybe here in Arkansas, maybe down in Texas. I have not decided yet. First, I need to save up enough money to make it happen." "How close are you?" "Close enough that I can see it on the horizon. Another year, maybe two, and I will have what I need." That must be a good feeling, working towards something like that. It is, but it is also lonely. A ranch is not meant to be run by one person. It needs a family, people who care about it and each other. The implication hung in the air between us, unspoken but understood. Margaret looked away, her cheeks flushing. "You should not say things like that to someone you just met." "Why not?" "Life is too short to waste time pretending we do not feel what we feel." "And what do you feel?" "Isaiah Fletcher. I feel like I have been waiting my whole life to meet someone like you. I feel like maybe God brought me to Fort Smith for a reason, and that reason is sitting across from me right now." She stood up abruptly. "I should go. This was a mistake. You are going to leave town in a few days, and I am going to be here, dealing with the gossip and the stares and everyone telling me what a fool I am for thinking a man like you could ever really care about me." I stood too, tossing some coins on the table to cover our meal. "Walk with me." "Just for a little while, Isaiah." "Please, Margaret, just a walk. If you still want to leave after that, I will not stop you." She hesitated, then nodded. We left the hotel together and walked out into the warm spring night. Fort Smith was quiet at this hour, most folks already in their homes, the streets lit by the occasional lamp. We walked without speaking at first, just being together, and I found myself intensely aware of her presence beside me. She was indeed tall, her eyes level with my forehead, but it did not bother me the way she seemed to think it should. If anything, I liked it. I liked having to look up slightly to meet her gaze, liked the way she moved with unconscious grace despite her size. "Why are you being so kind to me?" she finally asked. "Because you deserve kindness, because I like you, because when I look at you I see someone worth knowing. You barely know me. Then let me know you better. I am in town for at least another week. Morrison wants us to rest the horses and resupply before heading back to Texas. Spend time with me. Let me prove that I am serious." "And what happens when you leave?" "What happens when you go back to your cattle drives and your dreams of a ranch, and I am still here in Fort Smith, running my father's forge? Maybe you come with me." She stopped walking and turned to face me. "You are crazy, you know that, probably. But I am also serious, I know it is fast. I know we just met. But I also know that I have never felt this way about anyone before, and I am not going to let you walk away just because you are scared." "I am not scared. Liar. All right, I am terrified. I am terrified that you are going to wake up tomorrow and realize what a mistake this is. I am terrified that this is some kind of joke, that you and your friends are having a laugh at my expense." "Look at me, Margaret." I waited until she met my eyes. "I am not joking. I am not laughing. I am standing here in the middle of the night, in a town where I do not know anyone except you, telling you that I think you are the most remarkable woman I have ever met. I am not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I am just asking you to give me a chance. Give us a chance." Tears were streaming down her face now, and she made no effort to hide them. "Why do you care? Why does it matter to you?" "Because I have spent 7 years alone, telling myself it was better that way, that I did not need anyone. And then I saw you standing in the middle of Main Street, holding that wagon wheel like it weighed nothing, and something inside me just knew. I knew that I was tired of being alone. I knew that I wanted to know you, to be near you, to see if this feeling was real. And if it is not, then at least we tried. At least we did not spend the rest of our lives wondering what if." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "You are persistent, I will give you that. One of my few virtues. I doubt that is true. Spend time with me and find out. What do you have to lose?" "My dignity, my pride, my heart." "Your heart was already mine the moment I smiled at you in the street. You just have not admitted it yet. You are impossibly arrogant, and you are impossibly stubborn. We are a perfect match." She laughed despite herself, shaking her head. 1 week. "You have 1 week to convince me that this is real and not some kind of fever dream." "I will take it." We walked a while longer, talking about everything and nothing, and by the time I walked her back to her home, a small house behind the forge, I knew I was in love. It was crazy and impulsive and completely unlike me, but it was true nonetheless. I had spent 7 years protecting my heart, keeping everyone at arm's length, and in one evening, Margaret Bailey had broken through every defense I had. The next morning, I met her at the forge just after dawn. She was already working, the fire roaring in the hearth, her hammer ringing against the anvil as she shaped a piece of red-hot iron. She looked up when I entered, surprise and pleasure warring on her face. "You are early," she said. "Figured I would make good use of my week." "What are you working on?" "Horseshoes. The livery stable needs 2 dozen by tomorrow." "Can I help? You know smithing, a little. My father taught me the basics before he died. I am no master, but I can work a bellows and hold steady." She considered for a moment, then nodded. "All right." "The bellows, then. Keep the fire hot while I work." We fell into an easy rhythm, her shaping the iron while I kept the coals glowing white-hot. The work was hard and hot, sweat soon soaking through my shirt, but there was something satisfying about it. I liked watching her work, liked seeing the concentration on her face as she turned rough metal into something useful and beautiful. "You are good at this," I said during a break when she plunged a finished horseshoe into the water barrel with a hiss of steam. "I should be. I have been doing it since I was 12. Did your father always plan for you to take over?" "No. He hoped I would marry, have a normal life. But when my mother died, there was just the 2 of us, and he needed help. He started teaching me, thinking it would just be until I was old enough to find a husband. But I loved it. I loved the work, the challenge of it, the way you could take something rough and make it into exactly what was needed. By the time I was 16, I was better at it than most of his apprentices. What did he think about that? He was proud, I think, but also sad. He knew what it would mean for me, knew that the townspeople would never accept a woman blacksmith. He tried to prepare me for it, but you cannot really prepare for that kind of rejection. Their loss. That is what he used to say. We worked through the morning, and I found myself falling into the rhythm of her world. When the dinner bell rang from the church, we stopped and washed up at the pump behind the forge. Margaret had brought lunch, bread and cheese and cold chicken, and we sat in the shade of an old oak tree to eat. "Thank you for helping this morning," she said. I was not expecting it, but it made the work go faster. I enjoyed it. There is something honest about smithing. You put in the work, you get results. Not like people. No, definitely not like people. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "The whole town is talking about us, you know." About last night, about you being here this morning. Martha Green is telling everyone that you must have some ulterior motive. Do I seem like a man with ulterior motives? I do not know, do you? Only the motive of getting to know you better. Is that so terrible? No, but it is unusual. Men do not usually. Do not usually what? Look up. The words were soft, almost whispered, but they hit me like a hammer blow. I understood then, really understood, what she had been dealing with her whole life. It was not just that she was tall. It was that her height made men feel small, made them uncomfortable, challenged their sense of how the world should be ordered. And rather than examining their own insecurities, they made her feel like she was the problem. Then they are cowards, I said. Real men do not need to be taller than everyone else to feel like men. Real men measure themselves by their actions, not their stature. You really believe that? I really do. That afternoon, I helped her deliver the horseshoes to the livery stable. The owner, a gruff man named Sam Peterson, looked surprised to see us together but did not comment. He counted the shoes, paid Margaret her fee, and sent us on our way. As we walked back to the forge, we passed a group of women standing outside the general store. Their conversation stopped abruptly when they saw us, and I heard one of them, a woman I later learned was called Ellen Morris, say in a voice loud enough to carry, "Well, I never. Some men have no sense at all." Margaret's shoulders tensed, and I could see her starting to withdraw into herself. Before she could, I took her hand in mine. It was a bold move, a public declaration, and I saw her eyes widen with shock. "Isaiah, what are you doing? Holding your hand. Is that all right? People will see." "I certainly hope so. You are insane. You have mentioned that." "Answer the question, Margaret. Is it all right if I hold your hand?" She looked down at our joined hands, hers larger than mine, calloused from work, and then back up at my face. Whatever she saw there seemed to satisfy her because she smiled and said, "Yes, it is all right." We walked the rest of the way like that, hand in hand, and I could feel the weight of the town's judgment on us. But I could also feel Margaret's hand in mine, warm and strong, and that mattered more than any amount of gossip. That evening, I took her to dinner again, this time at a small restaurant on the edge of town that was quieter than the hotel. We talked about our dreams, our fears, our pasts. She told me about the loneliness of being different, about the men who had courted her only to back away, when they realized they would always have to look up to meet her eyes. I told her about my guilt over my father's death, about the years I had spent punishing myself by staying always in motion, never settling. "You still blame yourself?" she asked. "Some days more than others, but I am learning to forgive myself." My father would not have wanted me to carry that guilt forever. "Your mother, does she know where you are?" I write to her sometimes, send money when I can. She has remarried, has a new life. I think she has forgiven me, even if I have not quite forgiven myself. You should go see her. Maybe someday, after I get my ranch. What will you call it, this ranch of yours? I have not thought that far ahead. Something simple, probably. Fletcher's Ranch, maybe. Very original, she teased. I am a cowboy, not a poet. You have your moments. The week passed faster than I wanted it to. Every day, I worked with Margaret at the forge, learning more about her craft and more about her. Every evening, we walked together through town, enduring the stares and whispers but finding strength in each other. She showed me the places she loved, the bend in the Arkansas River where she used to fish with her father, the hill overlooking town where you could see for miles in every direction. I told her about the plains of Texas, the endless sky, the wild beauty of the open country. On the 6th day, Morrison sent word that we would be leaving the day after next. The horses were rested, the supplies gathered, and it was time to head back to Texas for another herd. I received the message while I was at the forge, and Margaret saw my face change. "What is it?" she asked. "We are leaving the day after tomorrow. Morrison wants to get back on the trail." She set down her hammer carefully. "I see." "Margaret, no, it is fine. I knew this was coming. You told me from the start that you were only passing through. Come with me." The words were out before I could think better of them, but once they were spoken, I knew they were right. She stared at me like I had lost my mind. "What? Come with me. Come to Texas. See the places I have told you about." "Isaiah, I cannot just leave. I have the forge, my responsibilities." "Sell the forge, or hire someone to run it, but do not stay here just because you think you have to. Do not let this town keep you prisoner." "It is not that simple." "Why not? What is really keeping you here, Margaret? Is it the business or is it fear?" Her eyes flashed. "You have no right to say that." "Maybe not, but I am saying it anyway. You are scared. You are scared that if you leave, if you take a chance on something new, it will all fall apart. You are scared that I will realize you are too tall or too different or too much, and you will be left with nothing. And what if that is exactly what happens? What if it does not? What if we build something amazing together? What if this is the start of the life you have always wanted but were too afraid to reach for? You are asking me to give up everything I have ever known for a man I have known less than a week. I am asking you to trust me. I am asking you to trust yourself. I am asking you to be brave enough to take what you want instead of settling for what you think you deserve." She turned away, her shoulders shaking. "I cannot do this. I cannot make this decision right now." "Then when?" "Because I am leaving the day after tomorrow, and I want you to come with me." "Not because I need you to, but because I want you there. Because everything is better when you are around. Because I love you, Margaret Bailey, and I am not ashamed to say it." She whirled around, tears streaming down her face. "You cannot love me. We barely know each other. I know that you are kind and strong and brave, even when you do not feel brave. I know that you make me laugh and make me think and make me want to be better than I am. I know that when I imagine my future, you are in it. Maybe that is not enough for some people, but it is enough for me." "What are you asking me, Isaiah? Be specific." I got down on one knee right there in the forge, the heat of the coals washing over us, the smell of coal smoke and hot metal all around. "I am asking you to marry me, Margaret Bailey. I am asking you to come to Texas and help me build a ranch and a life. I am asking you to take a chance on a cowboy who is not very tall and not very smart, but who loves you more than he has ever loved anything in his whole life." She stood frozen, her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. For a terrible moment I thought she was going to say no, thought I had pushed too hard and too fast. Then she dropped to her knees in front of me, taking my face in her hands. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will marry you. I will come with you. I will take that chance." I kissed her then, right there in the forge with the fire burning hot and bright, and it felt like coming home. Her lips were soft and warm, and she kissed me back with a passion that took my breath away. When we finally broke apart, we were both crying and laughing at the same time. "This is crazy," she said. "The best things usually are. I do not even know what to do first. The forge, my house, I have to." "Breathe, Margaret. We will figure it out together. That is what partners do." Over the next day and a half, we worked frantically to get everything arranged. Margaret found a buyer for the forge, a young man named Thomas Harding, who had worked as an apprentice for her father years ago. He had been working in Little Rock, but jumped at the chance to come back to Fort Smith and take over the business. The price was fair, and Margaret signed the papers with shaking hands. Her house and its contents she sold to a young couple just starting out. She kept only what she could carry: her clothes, her father's tools, a few precious mementos of her mother and father. Everything else was left behind, a whole life packed up and put away in the space of a day. The town buzzed with scandal. Margaret Bailey, the spinster blacksmith who everyone had given up on, running off with a cowboy she had known for barely a week. Some folks were scandalized. Others were amused. A few, like Sam Peterson at the livery stable, seemed genuinely happy for her. "Good for you, Margaret," he said when she came to say goodbye. "Get out of this town and make a real life for yourself. You deserve it." Martha Green, on the other hand, had nothing but dire predictions. "You will regret this," she told Margaret outside the general store. "Men like that, they do not stick around. He will get tired of you and leave you stranded in some God-forsaken place. Mark my words." "Thank you for your concern," Margaret said with icy politeness, "but I am quite capable of making my own decisions." We were married by the justice of the peace on the morning we were set to leave. A quick ceremony with Morrison and his wife as witnesses. Margaret wore a simple blue dress, and I wore my cleanest shirt. There were no flowers, no music, no fancy trappings, but when I slipped a plain gold band onto her finger, I meant every word of the vows I spoke. "I promise to love you, honor you, and stand by you all the days of my life," I said. "I promise to look up and smile every single day and remember how lucky I am." Her vows were simpler but no less heartfelt. "I promise to trust you, to build with you, and to never let fear keep me from living. I promise to be your partner in all things." Morrison clapped me on the back after the ceremony. "You are either the bravest man I know or the craziest, Isaiah. I have not decided which yet." "Probably both," I admitted. "Well, she is welcome on the drive. We could use someone with a strong back, and if she can smith, even better. Horses always need shoeing." The journey to Texas was long and hard, but having Margaret beside me made it bearable. She rode astride like a man, having no patience for side saddles, and handled her horse with the same competence she brought to everything else. The other men on the drive were skeptical at first, unsure what to make of a woman in their midst, but Margaret quickly won them over with her willingness to work and her good humor. When a horse threw a shoe in the middle of nowhere, Margaret rigged a temporary forge and replaced it herself, much to the amazement of the other cowboys. When the weather turned bad and we had to ride through a thunderstorm, she never complained, just pulled her hat low and kept going. And at night, when we made camp under the stars, she would sit beside me and talk about our plans for the future, the ranch we would build, the life we would make. "What kind of cattle do you want to raise?" she asked one night. "Longhorns, probably. They are tough, can handle the Texas heat." "What about you? Do you have a preference?" "I do not know enough about cattle to have a preference, but I want horses too. Good horses that we can breed and sell." "I like that idea. We could build a reputation for quality stock. And I want a real forge. A good one where I can still work metal when I want to. I do not want to give that up entirely." "Then you will have one. Whatever you want, Margaret, we will make it happen." She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. "I am happy, Isaiah, terrified but happy. Me too." We reached Texas in early summer. The land stretched out wide and endless under a blazing sun. Morrison's ranch was impressive. Thousands of acres of good grazing land, but I was already looking beyond it, already imagining my own piece of this vast country. "There is land for sale about 30 miles south of here," Morrison told me one evening. "Fellow who owned it died, and his widow is looking to sell and move back east. Might be worth looking at if you are serious about starting your own place." Margaret and I rode out to see it the next day. It was beautiful country, rolling hills with good grass and a creek that ran year-round. The house was small but sturdy, and there was a barn that needed work but had good bones. "What do you think?" I asked Margaret as we stood on a rise overlooking the property. "I think it is perfect. I think we could build something wonderful here." "Then let us do it." The widow, A tired-looking woman named Sarah Collins seemed relieved when we made an offer. "My husband loved this land," she said, "but I cannot manage it alone and I have no desire to stay in Texas. I want to go back to Virginia where my family is. I hope you will be happy here." "We will be," Margaret assured her. "We will take good care of it." The price took most of my savings, but Morrison agreed to hire me on for a few more drives to help build up our stake again. In the meantime, Margaret and I threw ourselves into making the ranch ours. We repaired the barn, patched the roof on the house, and started gathering cattle. Morrison sold us a dozen head to start with, and we bought more from other ranchers in the area. Margaret built herself a forge in the barn, using scrap metal and stones from the creek. It was not as fancy as the one in Fort Smith, but it served its purpose. She shod our horses, repaired our tools, and even started taking on work from neighboring ranches. Word spread quickly that there was a skilled blacksmith at the Fletcher Ranch, and people came from miles around. "I thought you wanted to leave smithing behind," I teased her one day as she worked on a complicated repair for a rancher from 2 counties over. "I thought I did too, but I missed it. And we need the money. We are doing all right. We can do better than all right. I want to thrive, Isaiah, not just survive." And thrive we did. The ranch grew slowly but steadily. We added more cattle, more horses. We hired a hand named Charlie Reeves, a young man who had been orphaned and needed work. He was good with animals and a hard worker, and he fit into our little family easily. 2 years after we arrived in Texas, Margaret discovered she was pregnant. She told me one evening as we sat on the porch watching the sun set, her hand resting on her stomach. "I am going to have a baby," she said, her voice filled with wonder. I pulled her close, my heart so full I thought it might burst. "That is the best news I have ever heard." "I am scared, Isaiah. What if something goes wrong? What if I am not a good mother?" "You are going to be an amazing mother, and nothing is going to go wrong. We will get through this together, just like we get through everything else." Our son was born in the spring of 1881, a healthy baby with his mother's green eyes and his father's stubborn chin. We named him Thomas, after Margaret's father, and from the moment I held him, I understood what it meant to love someone more than your own life. Margaret took to motherhood with the same determination she brought to everything else. She nursed Thomas while keeping up with the forge work, often with the baby strapped to her back in a sling while she worked the bellows. It was not easy, but we managed. "Are you happy?" I asked her one night after Thomas had finally fallen asleep. "Happier than I ever thought possible. There are days when I miss Fort Smith, miss the familiar streets and the people I knew. But then I look at you and Thomas and this life we have built, and I know I made the right choice. No regrets, not a single one, except maybe that I did not say yes to you faster. You said yes fast enough for me." Our family continued to grow. 2 years after Thomas, we had a daughter we named Catherine, a sweet-natured child who wrapped us all around her little finger from day one. 3 years after that, another son, Michael, who was as wild and rambunctious as his older brother was serious and thoughtful. The ranch prospered. We expanded our land, bought more cattle, established ourselves as reliable suppliers of quality stock. Margaret's smithing business grew too, and we eventually had to hire another hand just to help her keep up with the demand. The forge became known throughout the region, and people spoke of Margaret Fletcher with respect and admiration. We faced challenges, of course. There were droughts that tested our water supply, hard winters that killed off weaker stock, and the constant struggle to keep ahead of expenses. But we faced them together, and somehow that made them manageable. One day, about 5 years after we had settled in Texas, a letter arrived from Fort Smith. It was from Sam Peterson, the livery stable owner, and it contained surprising news. Thomas Harding, the man Margaret had sold her forge to, had died suddenly, and his widow was looking to sell the business. "Do you want it back?" I asked Margaret. She read the letter again, then set it aside. "No, that was another life, another person. I am not that lonely girl anymore. I am a wife, a mother, a rancher. The forge in Fort Smith belongs to someone else now. You are sure?" "I am sure. My home is here with you and our children. Arkansas is the past. Texas is the future." We wrote back to Sam, suggesting a young blacksmith we knew who was looking to establish himself. He bought the forge, and that was that. The last tie to Margaret's old life was severed, and she never looked back. The years rolled by, marked by the changing seasons and the growth of our children. Thomas grew into a fine young man, serious and hardworking, who wanted nothing more than to take over the ranch someday. Catherine developed a love of horses and spent every spare moment in the stables. Michael remained wild and free, talking about adventures and far-off places, but always coming home at the end of the day. Margaret and I grew older together, our hair turning gray, our faces lined by sun and wind. But the love between us never faded. If anything, it grew deeper, rooted in shared experience and mutual respect. Every morning I would wake up, look at her lying beside me, and remember the first time I saw her in Fort Smith, holding that wagon wheel like it weighed nothing. "Do you remember what you said to me that first day?" Margaret asked me once, years later. We were sitting on the porch, watching our grandchildren play in the yard. Thomas had married and given us 2 beautiful grandchildren, and Catherine was engaged to a nice young man from a neighboring ranch. "I asked if you needed help," I said. "No," after that, "when you helped me carry the wheel to the forge." I thought back, trying to remember. "I said that 2 people could do easier together what 1 person could do alone." "That is right, and you were correct. Everything is easier together. Everything is better. Even the hard parts, especially the hard parts." I took her hand, still large and strong despite the years, calloused from a lifetime of work. "I love you, Margaret Fletcher. I have loved you from the moment I looked up and smiled at you in that street, and I will love you until the day I die. And beyond, I hope, and beyond." We sat there together as the sun set over the land we had built, the ranch that had started as a dream and become our reality. Our children and grandchildren were healthy and happy. Our livestock were thriving. The forge still rang with the sound of Margaret's hammer on the days she felt like working metal, and through it all, we had each other. I thought sometimes about the people in Fort Smith who had pitied Margaret, who had said she was too tall for any man, too different to ever find happiness. I wished they could see her now, could see the life she had made, the family she had raised, the respect she had earned. But then again, their opinions had never mattered. What mattered was that she had been brave enough to take a chance, to leave behind everything familiar for the possibility of something better. And I had been lucky enough to be the man who looked up and smiled. Years later, when Thomas took over the day-to-day running of the ranch, Margaret and I found ourselves with more time to simply be together. We would ride out to the far corners of the property, just the 2 of us, and talk about the past and the future. She was in her 60s by then, her hair completely gray, but she still sat a horse like she was born to it. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had said no?" I asked her once. "Never, not even once. Do you? Only to marvel at how lucky I was that you said yes." "I was the lucky one, Isaiah. You gave me a life I never thought I could have. You loved me when I thought I was unlovable. You looked at me and saw someone worth fighting for. You were always worth fighting for. I just happened to be the one smart enough to see it." We celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary with our whole family around us. Thomas and his wife, Catherine, and her husband, Michael, who had finally settled down with a spirited young woman he had met at a church social, and all of our grandchildren. We had a feast, with music and dancing, and I watched Margaret move through the crowd, talking and laughing, completely at ease in her own skin. "You did good, Fletcher," Morrison said, clapping me on the back. He was retired now, his own children running his ranch, but he still visited when he could. "That woman is a treasure. Do not I know it? She has been good for you, made you settle down, made you build something real. We built it together. That is the secret, John. Finding someone who wants to build the same things you do." As the evening wore on and the grandchildren were put to bed, Margaret and I slipped away from the crowd. We walked hand in hand to our favorite spot, a rise overlooking the creek where we had first decided to buy the land. 25 years, Margaret said softly. Sometimes it feels like yesterday and sometimes it feels like forever. Both, somehow. I am glad I took the chance. I am glad I trusted you. I am glad you did too. I cannot imagine my life without you in it. She leaned against me and I wrapped my arms around her, this woman who had been called too tall, too different, too much for any man. She was none of those things to me. She was simply Margaret, my wife, my partner, my best friend. She was home. We stood there for a long time, watching the stars come out one by one, the same stars that had watched over us on that first cattle drive all those years ago. The same stars that had seen us struggle and succeed, fail and try again, build a life from nothing but love and determination. "I hope you know how much you mean to me," I said. "I do, and I hope you know the same. I do." The years continued to pass, bringing new grandchildren and eventually great-grandchildren. The ranch continued to prosper under Thomas's management, and we watched with pride as our children built their own lives and families. Margaret slowed down eventually, her joints stiff from years of hard work, but her spirit never dimmed. When she turned 70, I threw her a birthday party that brought people from all over the county. They came to honor her, to thank her for the work she had done shoeing their horses and repairing their equipment, to celebrate the woman who had proven that being different was not a weakness but a strength. "I never thought I would see the day when Margaret Bailey had so many friends," I teased her that night. "Margaret Fletcher," she corrected. "I have not been Margaret Bailey for almost 40 years. My mistake, Mrs. Fletcher. And these are not my friends, they are our friends. Everything we have, everything we have built, we did it together. You are right, as usual. We grew old together, our steps slower but our love stronger than ever. When I turned 75, my joints ached and my eyesight was not what it used to be, but I could still ride out to check on the cattle when I wanted. Margaret still kept a small forge in the barn, though she only worked on special projects now, gifts for the grandchildren and great-grandchildren. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching another sunset, Margaret turned to me and said, "I have been thinking." "That is always dangerous," she laughed. "Hush. I have been thinking about Fort Smith, about the girl I used to be. She was so lonely, so convinced that she would never find someone who could love her as she was. And now I want to tell her that it gets better. I want to tell her that the right person will come along, and when he does, she should be brave enough to say yes. I want to tell her that being different is not a curse but a gift, and that someday she will understand that. I wish I could tell my younger self a few things too." "Like what?" "Like do not waste 7 years running from your grief. Like forgive yourself sooner. Like when you meet the woman of your dreams standing in the middle of Main Street, do not wait even a second to tell her how you feel. You did not wait very long. I should have said it the moment I saw you." She reached over and took my hand. "You said it soon enough, and I heard you. That is what matters." We sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from decades of knowing someone completely. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple, and I thought about all the sunsets we had watched together, all the years we had shared. "You think we will have more time?" Margaret asked softly. "I hope so. But even if we do not, I have no regrets. This life with you has been more than I ever dreamed possible." "Me neither. No regrets at all. We did have more time, several more years of quiet peace. We celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary surrounded by 4 generations of family, a testament to the life we had built together." The ranch had grown beyond anything we had imagined in those early days, several thousand acres now, with dozens of hands to help run it. Thomas gave a speech at the anniversary party, talking about his parents and the legacy they had created. "My father always said that the best decision he ever made was asking my mother to marry him," Thomas said. "And my mother always said that the best decision she ever made was saying yes. They taught us that love is not about finding someone who fits into your life, but about building a life together that fits you both. They taught us that being different is not something to hide but something to celebrate. And they taught us that true partnership means facing everything together, the good and the bad, and never giving up on each other." There were tears and laughter, stories and memories shared. The grandchildren and great-grandchildren ran around, playing games and causing the same kind of joyful chaos that our own children once had. And through it all, Margaret and I sat together, hands clasped, watching the family we had created. "We did all right," Margaret said. "We did better than all right. We did amazing. I love you, Isaiah Fletcher." "I love you too, Margaret Fletcher, more than words can say." The final years were gentle ones. We spent our days in quiet companionship, sometimes talking, sometimes just sitting together. Our children and grandchildren visited often, keeping us connected to the larger family we had created. We watched the ranch continue to grow and change, adapting to new times while staying true to the values we had established. When the end came for me, it was peaceful. I died in my sleep at the age of 82, with Margaret holding my hand and our family gathered around. My last conscious thought was gratitude for the life I had lived, for the woman who had shared it with me, for the legacy we had built together. Margaret lived another 3 years after I passed, and by all accounts, she spent those years remembering and celebrating rather than mourning. She told stories to the great-grandchildren about the old days, about the cattle drives and building the ranch from nothing, about the first time she met their great-grandfather in Fort Smith. "He looked up at me and smiled," she would say. "And in that moment, I knew my life was about to change. I was so scared, but I was also so ready. Ready to be brave, ready to take a chance, ready to believe that I could be loved just as I was." When her own time came, she went peacefully, surrounded by the same love she had given so freely throughout her life. The funeral was attended by hundreds of people, ranchers and cowboys, neighbors and friends, all coming to pay their respects to the woman who had proven that strength came in many forms. They buried her next to me on the hill overlooking the ranch, under a simple marker that read, "Margaret Fletcher, beloved wife, mother, grandmother. She was never too tall for the man who loved her." The ranch continued on, passed down through the generations, each one adding their own chapters to the story that Margaret and I had started. The forge still stands in the barn, a museum piece now, preserved as a reminder of the woman who worked there. And on quiet evenings, when the family gathers on the porch to watch the sunset, someone always tells the story of how it all began. They tell about a woman standing in the middle of Main Street in Fort Smith, holding a wagon wheel that would have broken lesser people. They tell about a cowboy who was not afraid to look up and smile, who saw past the surface to the remarkable person underneath. They tell about a leap of faith, a quick marriage, a journey to Texas, and a life built on love and partnership and mutual respect. And they tell about the truth that Margaret and I learned together, that the right person does not make you smaller to fit into their life. The right person builds a bigger life with you, one where there is room for both of you to be exactly who you are, to grow and change and thrive together. Our story became part of the fabric of the ranch, passed down like a precious heirloom. Great-great-grandchildren who never met us knew our names, knew our story, knew that they came from people who had been brave enough to choose love over fear, partnership over loneliness, possibility over certainty. The ranch itself stands as our legacy, thousands of acres of good Texas land, home to cattle and horses and generations of the Fletcher family. But the real legacy is not the land or the buildings or even the family name. The real legacy is the lesson we left behind. That love comes in unexpected forms, that courage is choosing to be vulnerable, that the best partnerships are built between equals who respect and challenge and cherish each other. And somewhere in whatever lies beyond this life, I like to think that Margaret and I are together still, watching over the family we created, the ranch we built, the legacy we left. I like to think that we are still holding hands, still sharing that deep, abiding love that sustained us through 50 years of marriage and continues beyond death. Because some loves are like that. They do not end when life does. They continue on, woven into the fabric of everything we leave behind, living on in the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who carry our names and our values forward into the future. Margaret Bailey came to Fort Smith too tall for any man, or so they said. But Isaiah Fletcher looked up and smiled, and in that smile was recognition, respect, and the beginning of a love that would span decades and generations. We built a life together that defied expectations, that proved the small-minded wrong, that showed what is possible when two people truly see each other and choose to build something beautiful together. And if that is not a legacy worth leaving, I do not know what is. The ranch stands still, a testament to what we built. The family continues, carrying forward the values we instilled. And the story endures, told and retold, a reminder that the best love stories are not about perfect people or easy paths, but about real people who choose each other every single day, who build something lasting together, who prove that different is not wrong, it is just different, and sometimes different is exactly what the world needs.